Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tyler Talk, here to bring you the latest sports news wherever you are. I'm Lebron, and first off I want to start by thanking everyone who liked, commented and subscribed to the show number one, and especially thank you to those who took their time out to comment and discuss the show with me and give me points on how to further progress the show and how to bring in a new look into sports podcasting. So I just want to say thank you for that. But without further ado, let's get in the show. But just before we do get into the show, make sure that this video you like, subscribe and hit the bell, and make sure that you are up to date with all videos that will be coming in the future. Also, if you wish to get into contact with me for discussions, sponsorships or appearances in future videos, please look at my Instagram. It is at TYB_talk. That's right, at TYB_talk. But all that out of the way, let's get into show number 2. So looking back at last week's show, one of the main questions I got was who else do I support other than New England, Manchester United and the Brooklyn Nets? Because I'll be touching on other sports, when big news comes around for other sports. So let's just get into the other teams I support, just get them out there so you can all stop guessing who else I support. So in college football, I'm a Texas Longhorns fan. In ice hockey, I support the Pittsburgh Penguins. And in baseball, I support the Chicago Cubs. These are a combination of teams that were popular around places that I've lived, like when I lived in Texas for a while, and other teams are where family members lived, like the Chicago Cubs. It's quite a dynamic mix, especially around the US. But they're just teams that I've probably watched and I've really enjoyed over the past few years as well. So that really just brings in why I support these teams. So now let's get into our NFL news, starting off with the Philadelphia Eagles trading Carson Wentz to the Colts. Let's go. Yes, so starting off the show is the brand new deal between the Indianapolis Colts and the Philadelphia Eagles for Carson Wentz to go to the Colts in exchange for a third round pick this year and a second round pick this year. For me, I only have one comment. Well done to the Colts. You have officially entered, for me, the Super Bowl conversation. This is a team I expect to compete against the Bills and Chiefs in the playoffs, and let's be honest, the only reason I say them two teams is because it's going to be these two teams for quite a long time. And now, with a QB like Carson Wentz, this only makes things interesting, and this is only going to happen if he can stay healthy. But with two all-pro offensive linemen to guard you, I don't think that'll be a problem. Next up, Adrian Peterson with his eyes set on Emmitt Smith's rushing record and what I realistically think is possible for him. This is Tyler Brown on Untitled Talk. Stay tuned. So, in an interview with Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe, Detroit Lions running back Adrian Peterson has openly admitted that he has a future set on two things before he retires: a Super Bowl ring, obviously, and Emmitt Smith's all-time rushing yards record set in 2004. But before we do get into all that, let's look at this future Hall of Famer's career. Yes, he's definitely a future Hall of Famer. So we start in 2007 when a young Oklahoma running back got drafted by the number 7 by the Minnesota Vikings and hit the ground running. For the next 12 years, he racked up 11,747 yards over 123 games, scoring 97 touchdowns. But, unfortunately, with missing 20 games due to injury and a further 15 due to the child abuse scandal in 2014, he missed a lot of rushing yards that could have made his goal of becoming the number 1 rusher even closer. During his major knee injury in 2016 and quarterback Sam Bradford having a new offense built around him, Peterson then took his talents to Arizona for a season, but unfortunately was not really able to make up that lost time. 448 yards in 6 games, then the season after he went to New Orleans and only picked up 81 yards over 4 games. When our team lost, the Washington football team decided to take up Peterson with 1,900 yards in 31 games. And it seemed like a good fit for Peterson. You know, he looked like a new man. You know, he looked like the person you just got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, running all over the place. But with financials taking priority within the organization, Peterson was cut and joined Detroit the following year, in which looks like Peterson's final rushing place. With over 600 yards in 16 games, the future looks promising for Peterson's final years. The next question we have to ask now: has Adrian Peterson got enough time? Not the ability, not the ability. He's definitely got the ability. Has he got the amount of time to beat Emmitt Smith's record? I mean, it's a lot of yardage to make up for. You know, I think currently he is 3,536 yards to go. That's a lot of yardage to make up. You know, and obviously, you know, players say they can go on for many years, and Peterson has said to Shannon Sharp the other day that he will go to his 40. So let's put that in mind. Let's do a bit of maths right here. Let's do maths real quick. So going off Adrian's prediction, he's going to play till he's 40. So that gives him 5 years. So that over them seasons, he'll have to do the 3,536 yards, which is an average of 708 yards per season. That beats the record, puts him number one on the list, and he gets the crowning glory. I don't think he'll win a Super Bowl in that time. Just the Lions just aren't a Super Bowl team at the moment. You never know. Jared Goff might put him there, but reality states otherwise. But my prediction really is, DeAndre Swift is their new starting running back. He's younger, faster, stronger. He's great catching out of the backfield. So the 13 games, that Peterson played this year, will he get that many over the next 3 to 5 years? No, it's not business smart to do that. He's getting older. He's not as young as he used to be. He's not strong. He's got this. Has the same tendencies where defensive players will pick up on him a lot quicker. So I believe he'll only play for 3 years. He'll get a maximum of 1,200 yards over them years. It puts him 2,336 yards under and second on the list. And like I said already, he's a guaranteed Hall of Famer already. And number 2 on the list is, it's obviously not. I know that it is a sport and you want to compete to be the best. But for someone who's had the injuries and the time lost due to other external things, I think we all know that he would have beaten that record if he got them 35 games back. Unfortunately, he didn't. So therefore, the record is just out of his reach. Unfortunately, like I said, he's probably one of my most favorite running backs of all time. But it's a difficult one. If he could go back in time, obviously he would get it. But unfortunately, the situation is now, and that's what's happening. So next up is another Texan who is making a splash in the free agency market. This is Tyler Brown on Untitled Talk. Please stay tuned for more. So Houston Texans defensive player J.J. Watt is now on the market. Bad news for the Texans, but I'll make a formal opinion in what they do this offseason. But we have to ask ourselves, where is J.J. Watt headed next? And in the scope of this whole dilemma, I've read up a lot about it. I've listened to a lot of other, media personnel's take their look on the story. There's only 3 teams that seem to pop up in connection with him. But just before we do, let's just do what we did with Peterson and take a look at the great man's stats. He got drafted at number 11 in 2011 by the Texans, and for the next 10 years, he's been a force to be reckoned with, really has. 128 games, 101 sacks, so he's part of the 100 sack club, 2 interceptions, which both led to TDs, 25 forced fumbles, 172 tackles for loss out of 409 solo tackles, and 282 QB hits. And again, with the Peterson thing, he's had, he's not as had as many injuries, but 19 games missed, with 11 being a broken leg and 8 being a pectoral tear. You know, it's a tough one. It really is a tough one for this, for this player. He's certainly had a great career. He's won the he won the Defensive Player of the Year 3 times, 5 Pro Bowl and All Stars, 2 time sack leader and the Walton Payton Award. And obviously he was second in the 2014 MVP vote. Obviously got beat by Aaron Rodgers, but of course a QB got it over him. So just before we get into the teams, who have circulated around this player, we need to talk about ourselves. What is the best deal for JJ? He's not young anymore, again, so his contract it can't be a big money contract. The place where he decides to go will have to be a team that will be give him a contract based on bonuses in terms of sacks, fumbles, QB hits, etc. Because that's the only type of contract in which a team will put him in the best position to sit back and rely on the defense and him on the defense to make plays, because they'll have a comfortable lead in the game. They're relying on their defense. Because relying on your defense when losing is worse than when you're winning. And that's what Houston did. Houston relied on JJ to make a big play in the third/fourth quarter when they're down by a score or two. And that's just not how defensive players live. Defensive players live to extend the lead that they already have. And that's why he's left. That's why he's took a $17 million cut. It's really bad what the Houston Texans have done to some of their star players over the past few years. That's why DeAndre Hopkins left as well. He's waiting for a position to get the ring that you want. Obviously, that's why you play the game. It is, and like I said, I'm not going to make a formal opinion about the team until I've seen what they've done in this offseason. So, here are the 3 teams that I've seen really circulating around the media, around JJ as well. So Green Bay, the defensive system's not the best, but I like this deal out of the 3, just because, and this is something I've said for a while now, someone needs to come in and compete to be a leader with Aaron Rodgers, because like I've said for the past few years, Rodgers has acted like a bit of a, it's like he's like a toddler. He throws his toy on the floor. He throws his toys on the floor and whatnot, and everyone makes a big kerfuss over him and goes, "Oh no, please don't complain. Here's this, here's that. We'll give you this, we'll give you that." And it's not. No player makes up an organization. People say like, "Oh, Patrick Mahomes is the person of that franchise," but he's not though, because you've got Tyreek Hill, you've got Kelsey, you've got Brady. I think Brady's a bit of an anomaly because it's difficult when you've got such a hard-working player who brings up everyone else. But Aaron Rodgers is not. He's not that person where you'd walk into an organization and he'd come up to you and show you the ropes and whatnot. He's sort of like, someone else will show you and be like, "Oh, that's Aaron." Yeah, you're like, just stay away from him a little bit. Just get out of his way, and he'll give it a ball when he feels like it. So if you bring a player in like JJ, who is a natural born leader, and we saw that at Houston, and the team takes to him as the new leader, that might bring the best out of Rodgers. And he has just won the MVP award this season, but his last one was 6 years ago. And like I said, it was arguably won due to the fact QBs are more favoured in award ceremonies. But JJ Watt could really make an impact at Green Bay and sort of compete for the better of that organisation. Next up is the Pittsburgh Steelers. To me, I don't know why this is circulating other than publicity. Having all the Watt brothers in one team and creating this weird, funny dynamic over there. It just doesn't fit. All because of two reasons, really. They have Cameron Hayward and Stephen Tuitt, who combined for, I think it was 15 to 20 sacks last year. And obviously, the obvious point of like their salary cap is extremely tight. And they've got to look to keep the players they've got, like Juju, like I explained in the last video. They've got to keep him. So it's nice thoughtful publicity to have all the Watt brothers in one place. And I think I saw something on Twitter the other day saying, "Oh, the Wattberg Steelers," and it's nice for that publicity. But overall, it's not a good fit for JJ. I don't think he'll be happy there in terms of his playing. And finally, Cleveland Browns. I think Colin Cowherd, who does a really good show over at Fox, and I think he's got his own new show now. He really explains how bad of a deal this is for JJ Watt, because the Browns are a team that were one of the two teams with a minus point difference at the end of the season. The Saints being the other, because except for the last two Steeler games, which, let's be honest, the Steelers were not at their best. I think the games before that, I think they lost to Washington as well, and everyone else, except for them two games, the Browns only beat bad teams last year. And when they faced the better teams, like the Ravens, the early Steelers when they were on fire, they got smoked. The Raiders and Jets smoked them a little bit as well. And like I said, apart from the last two Steelers games, they did win. They weren't impressive wins. They were surprising wins, but they weren't impressive. It's facing an egotistical team. I think that's what a lot of the Tampa Bay players are saying. That Kansas City were just cocky and arrogant, so we just took advantage of that and just got the win. And obviously, I think a lot of Browns fans will say, "Oh yeah, but we blew out New York." Well, yeah, because they didn't have their starting quarterback in Dan Jones and their superstar running back in Saquon Barkley. So no, Cleveland is. I don't know why it's circulating. It could be a player that comes in and turns the defense and gets the best out of Myles Garrett. But no, with all that being said, the Packers do look like the best out of the teams that I've seen circulating around. But time will tell. Time will tell. Time will definitely tell. So that's all I've got for NFL. Next up is football, soccer, whatever you call it, wherever you are listening from. A wild weekend in the Premier League has put the title taste in a bit of mayhem. And the return of European football, finally. This is Tyler Brown on Towel Talk. Stay tuned for more. So talk about a crazy weekend. Leicester beat Liverpool, Man United suffer a draw to Big Sam Allardyce, West Ham go up and Chelsea start to show promise. And of course, City run away with the league 10 points clear. So here's the league table at the moment, again. And it's quite different to what we saw last week. Liverpool dropping to 6th, Chelsea moving up, and West Ham slotting just in the middle of them. First of all, don't get attached to this West Ham side. They've got a really tough next 5 games. Spurs, City, Leeds, Man United, Arsenal, in that order. So if they really want to prove that they deserve to be up there, they need to win at least 2 of them games. But for me, I think the challenge is too great for David Moyes and his side. But the main story I want to press on is that really emotional Jurgen Klopp interview when he learns that the media are reporting that he's stepping away from football for a little while. He stated after losing 3-1 to Leicester that he's still full of energy, and the situation for Liverpool is a challenge, but an interesting challenge. He also made a few quirky remarks about the English weather and his beard getting grey, and and he made a slight comment on the lack of sleep he's getting. But overall, I feel like this story is just an absolute reach by British sports media. I mean, I understand he's had a bad season, but when when 9 of your players are out to injury and 4 of them are, were last season your weekly starters, including your centre back in Van Dijk, and um, it's it's going to have a knock on effect for you, And people are saying, "Oh, are these going to be the worst champions ever?" and whatnot, and you know, it's it's been a hard season with Liverpool. I do feel for him a little bit, only a little bit um as we all know who I support, but it was really hard to watch that interview. To be fair, that's the person who's put his heart and soul into that club. Um, he's come and done what other teams haven't done for a while. And he's pretty much put English football back on the European map in a way. You know, so it was really I think I spoke to a few people who are Liverpool fans, and they said it was a it was just a silly interview to really bring up that sort of news. But that's how the media works nowadays. So yeah. Then we go over to Manchester United, who you can't seem to decide whether or not they're in this title race. Sam Allardyce does what Sam Allardyce best, and picks up the point against the big teams. But then Solskjaer, you know, stated that United are now in the title race, even though last week we weren't in the title race, and it's just it's funny how when we're winning, we're not in the title race. No, we're not in the title race now. We're just gonna keep playing how we are. We see, then we dropped 2 points against the side we should have beaten. Oh yeah, we're in the title race. Yeah, certainly we can't let City run away with this league, can we? Well, if you said it last week, you might have got the 3 points this week. This is why last week I said that United are not a title winning side. They're not. They have a lot of work to do, bringing in the right players, being consistent. Consistency is what wins, teams leagues and titles. Um, you know, what we need, what we started doing at the start of the season with that early pressure and early attacking, has just seemed to, sort of go out the window when we face the smaller teams now. I think that Southampton win didn't help the situation. Obviously it helped in terms of a goal difference, but I think we just got a bit too excited with that. It's I understand it again, but when you're facing a team like West Brom and City are starting to edge away from you, you go out there and you get the win. Yeah, like I said, United have a lot of work to do, but as long as they keep up the consistency to retain the Champions League place, and they continue with that good form they showed over Real Sociedad, um, next season could be interesting, as well as obviously bringing in a few players. Now that rant's over. Next up, we'll look at the return of Champions League football. As PSG shocked Barcelona, Juventus got shocked by Porto. Yeah, this is Tara Brown on Tile Talk. Please stay tuned for more. The Champions League is back. Thank God it couldn't have come any time sooner. Yes, even though I have no team to root for in the Champions League, it will be filling my weekly slot in my furlough-induced life. And week 1 did not disappoint. The first match saw PSG take on the falling giants, which were Barcelona. Really, what couldn't have gone wrong for Barcelona? They were outbeat, they were outplayed, outsmarted, outran by this young PSG side. Led by Mbappe and his trusted sidekick Neymar. Or the other way around. I'll let you decide that. Yeah, even though Messi did put his side up, surprise, surprise, with a penalty, this young French team came back swinging. Kylian Mbappe got a hat trick. Everton loanee Moise Kean even got a goal in there. And that's really put, 4-1 is really bad for Barcelona in terms of, getting themselves off to a good start next match. The fact that it was a home match for them and they've now got to score at least four goals away, sorry. It's gonna be an interesting second leg. I mean, Barcelona are not shy of making great comebacks, but you know, with a team that hasn't got the strike force they used to have, I think they have a lot of work to do. So the main question I'm going to take from this is, I'm not taking away this from PSG. PSG, congratulations, very well deserved. Um, does this start to spell the end for Barcelona? I mean, this is a team that really, really shot themselves in the foot this season. They sold Luis Suarez for peanuts just because Messi wanted to stay. You know as much as they say that it wasn't working with Luis Suarez, that's a lie. He's currently La Liga's top goal scorer, one of the Champions League top goal scorers at the moment, I think, as well. Um, yeah, it definitely was not because of personal issues. It was definitely so they can keep Messi. Um, but and if Messi leaves, then I guess it's all up to Antoine Griezmann to do it all for them. And in my opinion, that's just not going to happen. Antoine Griezmann, when he left to go to Barcelona, was a joke. I understand that when Barca lost Neymar, they needed to fill the gap, but Griezmann wasn't the player for them. I think he's shown that I think the last time that he scored, I think the last time he scored for the team, I think it's been a while since he has scored. To be fair, I think he didn't score against Alaves. Did he score against Sevilla? No, they lost 2-0 to Sevilla, didn't they? He's not scored in a while. I don't think he scored this month. I don't think he's scored in over a month. And that's really bad for a player that you need to, that you need to score the goals. It's very disappointing in that fact. So yeah, like with this Barcelona side, who Messi could leave. I don't think he will this season, but he could leave this season. Does this spell the end for Barcelona? Only time will tell. I think they've got a lot of work to do. That's all I'm going to say. They've got a lot of work to do if they want to carry on with this Champions League campaign. Next up, we saw a flaunting Premier League side Liverpool get their much needed confidence boost with a 2-0 win over RB Leipzig at Anfield. And to say the least, a much needed win for Jurgen Klopp and his side. With everything I said in the last segment, this Champions League run could be what could be their confidence booster to get into next year's Champions League. You know, and it wasn't like it was an easy game. RB Leipzig is not an easy game, home or away. They've certainly put themselves in the driver's seat for the second leg in a few weeks' time. So well done Liverpool. Really well done for that one, especially after losing as they did over the weekend. Now Juventus didn't do as expected. They suffered a 2-1 loss to Portuguese side Porto this week, and I didn't watch the game. I watched the Manchester City versus Everton game. But what I've read about it and the highlights I've watched, it seems like Pirlo pretty much said that their team handed the game to Porto on a silver platter. There's also highlights of Ronaldo being a bit selfish, which is, I think that's always been the thing with Ronaldo. Um, you know, Juventus fortunately got that away goal, which can only give them that silver lining for the second leg match. Like I said, I didn't really watch the match. That's all I've really got to say about that. The next up again, Borussia Dortmund came down from 1-0 to a hard-earned 3-2 win over Sevilla. And again, I didn't watch the match, but I watched the highlights and the reports. Dortmund looked pretty lazy in that first 10 minutes. They went down in the first 10 minutes and they looked lazy. But I think that goal woke them up. And Haaland does what Haaland does best. He found the net for sure. 2 goals and then got him a healthy away goal advantage over Sevilla. Sevilla have a lot of work to do as well if they are to defeat the side. A 1-0 win won't cut it. They're going to need to at least win by 2 goals to 0. And with not being able to hold a 1-0 win at home, I don't think the away match will look as good. Yeah. And that is all for football/soccer news for today. Next up is the NBA. And with the All-Star team being announced last night, we ask ourselves, who are the best players in the league at the moment? And there's a current dilemma with LeBron James I need to touch on very soon. This is Tyler Brown on Tyler Talk. Please stay tuned for more. Now, the main reason I really, really like basketball is because it's the one sport where you can individually judge people and put them in a ranking system. With NFL, there's so many different positions; it's hard to really judge. With football/soccer, there's many different positions and many different roles you have to play, that sort of put you down a little bit in them. But the NBA, you can really put a tier system because, although there are different positions, you're essentially able to make yourself a scorer. Like I would never expect a centre back in soccer/football to score a goal. If they do, then fair enough. Same as an offensive lineman, I wouldn't expect them to score a touchdown. Again, it does happen sometimes, but it's one of those. So what I'm going to do, I picked 15 players who are in my top 15, and then I'm going to tell you 5 players who you probably thought, yeah, why are they not in there? But I'm going to explain why. So, here's my little pyramid I've got here. I've sort of edited it from another sports podcaster's pyramid. I just changed it up a little bit to my own personal opinion. So let's get into it with the bottom 5. So my bottom 5 consists of James Harden, PG-13, Mitchell, Beal, and CP3. The reason why these 5 are here is basically because they are players I can rely to run up and down the court and make defensive and offensive plays. Yes, I know James Harden is stereotypically not a defensive player, but for this Nets side, especially after beating the Lakers yesterday, he went on there literally this morning. He went on there. There was another player. There's actually 2 players who switched around for each other. He played for the same team, and I think whilst the list progresses, you'll see why. But that's the reason why they're the base 5. Their offensive and defensive work has improved immensely over this season, and I can't fault them to a T on that one. Next up, the middle 4, Steph Curry, Kawhi, Aaron Davis, and Dame. Obviously, Dame did get snubbed for the All-Star. His opinion was made very largely on social media about his opinion on that. But, with players like Steph, Kawhi, and AD being on there, I think it's only right. Steph is really running the show on his own down there at Golden State. Kawhi, obviously, he hasn't won a title in a few years, but he's still showing that A-class stardom again, like Steph is. Anthony Davis, he's obviously LeBron's number 2 man. Certainly second in contestant for the MVP award, in my opinion. I think that's a good, solid middle 4, to bring into the scheme of my top 15 players. Next up, the top 3 got Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid. Like I said, last week's power rankings, Giannis and Embiid have been non-stop power. They've been absolutely amazing these past few years, and these past weeks only improved on that opinion. Jokic, obviously, a player who has immensely improved over the last few weeks. Start of the season was quite rocky for him, but he really shows why he's up there as a player. Obviously with the teammates he's got around him, it really proves that he really deserves to be in there. Like I said, originally if this was a few weeks ago, he'd probably only just make the 15. But these past few weeks have shown that he is deservedly in a top 6 category. Second and third, Luka and Durant. Durant has really, secured his place as the number 2 for me, just because for um, the past 11 to 13 years, he's proven that he can play ball, and he can play ball consistently no matter where he is. Obviously, I would love to have seen him stay at Golden State with Steph Curry, but the man had a point to prove that he doesn't need other players to do it. And obviously, with bringing in James Harden, it's only improved his case that his defensive work is really improved. And Luka's been a player who's come into the league and just hit the ground running. He got his obviously offensive rookie of the year a few years back, and he's obviously made MVP cases the following years. But I think we all know who's at top of this pyramid. LeBron James. You know, when you're in a conversation of being the greatest of all time with Michael Jordan, this season alone could make that case. His stats have been fanatic this season. I'm going to get them up now for you. I think he's made 75% of all of his shots this season. So 70% of his free throw percentage is up there. 30 games, 25.9 points, 7.9 assists. It's he's a player that really solidifies his case for the GOAT conversation, and that is why he's obviously up there. So now I think there's a few names I'm probably missing off here, and we can discuss it all day. But the players that I've missed off, obviously Kyrie, Zion Williamson, Butler, Russell Westbrook, and Clay. The reason why Kyrie was subbed for James Harden, because he has not been the defensive tyrant he used to be. Kyrie, and I know what he's getting on, but Kyrie at the end of last season was running up and down. And that was when he was pretty much on his own. Obviously Durant made quite a good impression on the team, but it was pretty much Kyrie's team last season, and I'm just not seeing that from him. Zion, he was projected to be this big bad player who's going to come in and set the league on fire with his hard dunks and his tough playing style. He's not been there for me. He's been there, but he's not been there for me. Same with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is a player who I expect more from. Obviously, when you are in the Miami Heat, it is a tough team to play for because of the reputation that they have. But it's just not good enough for me. I think these 3 players alone only just get into my top 20. And that's being generous. I think there's obviously Tatum and other players who go into that top 20, but these 3 players who are big names only just get in there. Westbrook and Clay, I've not seen them this season. Where have they been this season to put a case forward for themselves for anything? I've honestly been pretty heartbroken. Russell Westbrook used to be one of my favorite players in the NBA. He was really exciting as a player, and now since he went over to the Wizards, he's just not been the same. So him and Clay probably in my top 40. And the reason Klay Thompson is also along that is just he's not there for Steph Curry. You think of Klay Thompson when they were the biggest team in the NBA. He's sort of just become a player that sits back, and I know that he's been injured quite a lot of times this season, but obviously he got an Achilles injury this season, but he's just not been there for me in terms of a player that used to be shooting threes and making big defensive plays. He's just not been the same since everyone else left. I think he's really I think he's really taken the injury to heart, um, which obviously he would in that position. But you know, um, yeah, yeah, obviously he's still a bluff figure in Golden State, because he has got the personality that's lovable, but unfortunately it's just not enough for me to keep him in a top 15 position. It wouldn't be fair to the players that are in there, and that's why I've kept him there. And with me putting them in the top 40 position, you know, they're very lucky to be there. Obviously, I know that I just explained that Clay, he has been out injured and whatnot, but Westbrook especially, he's lucky to be in that top 40, just because he's just not been a player that's just shown up for me. And I know I keep repeating myself and over again, but when someone is one of your favorite players, um, in the NBA, it's hard to see them fall so hard. And that's all. That's all I've got to say, really. But next up is, who is LeBron's rival? Who is the next person to contest LeBron for whether it be an MVP or maybe even possible get into a GOAT conversation with? That's what I'm going to talk about next. This is Tyler Brown on Untitled Talk. Stay tuned for more. In sport, there's always a great rivalry. There's always two players or two competitors who, just when they meet up, it's always a big game or a big debate that goes on who is better than the other. Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. Very big debate. My opinion is Ronaldo. Most people say Messi. But yeah, Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. When these two fought, it was a big fight. Muhammad Ali obviously got the better, but people make a case for Joe Frazier. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Up until this last season, there was a big debate. Some people still debate it now somehow, but I think if they take a look at last week's GOAT case, I think they'd have a different opinion, in my opinion. But the question here today is, who is LeBron's closest rival? Who makes LeBron get the best out of LeBron? Obviously, people say Michael Jordan, but the two never played together, so it's hard to really compete against. Obviously, the GOAT conversation is for them too, but at the moment, who is LeBron's closest rival? I picked three players who make a case, but overall, out of the three, there is clearly one choice. First choice is Kawhi Leonard. The reason why I picked Kawhi Leonard, because up until recently, Kawhi has made his statement um, as LeBron's, LA rival. With him going to the Clippers, I think, and obviously after the 2014 MVP awards, I feel like Kawhi and James, if they do stay at these teams for the next few years, could be a great rivalry in terms of it's sort of comparison to the Ronaldo and Messi, when they were in Spain together. Who runs that area? Who runs Spain? Who runs LA? And obviously with they've only faced each other, and whilst Kawhi and James have only faced each other 24 times, um, since they've both been in the league, Leonard may have the edge in wins, but LeBron brings his game to scoring and making big plays and making sure his team is in the best position to take the wins. And in a sport like basketball, obviously you have them games where it's really close contested, but then the last 2 minutes, you know, the losing, the latter team brings in the heat and gets the win, and I think that's why Leonard has them edging wins. But like I said, when these two compete, LeBron acts up. LeBron steps up to the plate and says, "Well, you may think Kawhi is better, but boom, slam dunk, guess who's back, and that's something that LeBron does. Against the teams that you know that have the players that come up against him, he really turns up. And going to my next player, Stephen Curry, again, a player that when these two faced in 2015 finals, you know, the Warriors really did put it, really did give it to the Cavaliers in 2015. Um, but obviously, since 2016, when the narrative changed, you know, I think there's obviously the famous clip comes back of James blocking Curry's layup and looking back at him with that face, as if to put as if to put Steph Curry in his place. Really, I think that really puts a case forward for this rivalry. In the in the 35 times these two players have met, James has one more win, and I think Curry has 8 more playoff wins over LeBron. And when you look at it as in, Curry kept James from winning rings to catch Michael Jordan, that's a big thing. It's sort of like, when people talk about Eli Manning and Tom Brady. Eli Manning beat Tom Brady twice. That's 2 rings he took off him. That is what a rivalry makes. Obviously, Eli Manning can never contest against Tom Brady, but when you think of players that taken away titles from the best players, it makes you think: is this a rivalry beginning to happen? Obviously, with Brady and Manning, it never happened, but with Steph Curry and James, it does. And then we go into my final contestant for LeBron's closest rival. And I think, obviously, we all know who it is looking for my player pyramid. It's Kevin Durant. Since coming into the league, a good portion of Kevin Durant's career has been in the shadow of LeBron James. I mean, obviously, when you look at the points, Durant outscores him every time. But James is like no other player. When these two last night we saw it. Last night we saw a bit of it. When LeBron and Durant got on the court together, it was like a dance of the dragons. You're watching these two players circulate around each other. They're trying to get in each other's heads because they know that this is a player that really can give it to me and create big problems. No other player. Popovich said this last year or the year before. No other player brings out the best in James like Durant, and it's so true. We saw it last night. The two produced nearly identical scoring totals in both regular season and playoffs when playing each other. Durant may get more, but James takes advantage of every moment of the game. Have you ever seen LeBron James stop running in a game? You don't. You don't see him. You don't see him stop. He may stop for a fan talk or to talk to Jay-Z and Beyonce, but that's understandable. It's Jay-Z and Beyonce. I stand and talk to them for a good 5-10 minutes. But again, the reason that LeBron James is so good is because he's got a player like Durant just behind him. And I think the main reason why Durant doesn't get as much credit is because of his team jumping. And that a lot of people say that that's a negative of his. I like how Durant jumps teams because he's consistent on other teams. If Durant was jumping from team to team and doing badly, then yeah, fair enough. Why is he joining these teams and just not doing well? But he joins teams and makes them better. He brings other players in. Kevin Durant brought James Harden to the Nets. Kyrie Irving didn't bring James Harden to the Nets. No. Kevin Durant brought James Harden to the Nets. Kyrie Irving was like a perk, It's like a cycle scheme when you get a new job, cycle to work scheme. It's just that little bonus. Kyrie Irving said, "Oh yeah, fair enough, yeah, it's just there." But Kevin Durant is like, if you hit this target, you get a big bonus. That's what Kevin Durant is. Kevin Durant is the extended holiday days, the big bonus when you hit targets. And that's why a player like him competes against LeBron James, because that's what LeBron James is as well. LeBron James goes to a team. He came to LA. He brought Anthony Davis with him, and they won the title together. Who's next? Who's next to join LeBron? If he stays at LA or if he goes somewhere else. I think he'll stay in LA, obviously, but if he does go somewhere else, who will he bring with him? If he brought Durant with him, obviously the rivalry would end, but it'd be nice to see, obviously, them two play together. But I think I'm just leaving it in a fantasy land at the moment right now. So, to finish off the show, I'm going to explain the mystery that has been the final talking point. This is something that I've been thinking long and hard on, and I think it's time I finally just get my audience and my not fans, that's the wrong word. My audience, I think that's the only word I can use for it. My audience involved in the show a little bit more. So we're going to explain that right next. This is Tyler Brown on Tyler Talk. Stay tuned for more. When creating Tyler Talk, there were two things I wanted to have: multiple shows and audience participation. And with this being said, I've now decided to give you guys another podcast every week on Mondays, which will talk about the biggest sporting questions / debates. And I've decided to call it Big Talk with Tyler Brown. Big Talk will be your time to decide what I talk about. And as it's in the name, I will only tackle the biggest sporting questions. And the best part is, you guys decide. By commenting on Tyler Talk videos, you decide what I talk about. You can ask anything from who is the greatest athlete to what is the biggest sports controversy. I have an opinion on everything. So, the first show will run on Monday the 8th of March, so get commenting down below for your topic to be debated. And with that being said, that's all I have time for today. Once again, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for all future videos so you get notified straight away. Make sure you comment for Big Talk, which starts on Monday the 8th of March, and head over to my Instagram to get in contact with me over future shows, whether it be sponsorships, featuring on shows, or just a general sports chat. So, this is Tyler Brown with Tyler Talk, and I'll see you guys next week.